Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. I'm happy to introduce to you Mac McKenzie, who is the CEO and co-founder of the Bridge Institute, which brings senior leaders of governments, corporates, and civil society together to make breakthroughs in thinking and action on complex societal changes. Mac has worked and lived in many countries, among which Singapore, the UK, France, US, Germany, and Canada. Mac is a dedicated sportsman and mountaineer, and he has been a mountaineer guide for Raleigh International. He graduated from Oxford University with a master in engineering, economics, and management. Mac, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's a privilege to be invited. Thank you so much, Andrea.
So, Mac, before we dive into the topic of joy, tell us a little bit more about your beautiful journey and the Bridge Institute that you've created.
My journey in finding my purpose really started around 18, 19 years ago when I became a mountain guide for a youth charity in South America and Central America. And the experiences really showed me the power of believing in people, the power of leadership, and the great needs of a more fair and joyous world. And decided I wanted to dedicate my life to that, and went looking for an organization that I thought would help make that happen in the world. And I found this organization called Bridge Partnership, and I joined them, and they help organizations have more purpose-led leaders, purpose-led organizations, be a stronger force for good in the world. I did that for around 16 years. And in the same time, I started then taking our work and our method to more and more difficult societal challenges, going into conflict zones, looking at combating human trafficking, and taking these methods of that. And then I started a charity called the Bridge Institute, and we formed it about 7 years ago. And I'm now the chief executive of that charity. And what we do is we bring government and business and civil society leaders together to solve pressing societal challenges, whether they're environmental or social. We will take on anything that fits under the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And that's where I am today.
What are some of the biggest successes that you have achieved, or some of the greatest accomplishments that you're most proud of? Because topics that you're covering are so broad and so important as well in our societies. Tell us more about that, please.
Maybe I'll give 2 or 3 examples. So one of our big programs that we've been doing now for 7 years is how do we combat human trafficking? What we look at is what's the root cause in society that's causing it? And I'll give you just one example. So one of the big root causes we think that drives human trafficking is child marriage. So just to give you a sense of how big a problem it is, if you're born a girl today, you have a 1 in 5 chance of being married as a child. There's still also many boys who are married as children. And if you get married as a child, then your chances of having a healthy, joyous, and safe life are greatly diminished. So one program that we're really proud of that came out of it was working with police forces and communities in different parts of South Asia to get the whole community to come together and to commit to never allowing child marriage to happen again, to kind of change the mindset and to raise awareness about the importance of every boy and every girl being fully educated until they're financially independent. And we've seen a number of these programs happen across South Asia, and I feel incredibly proud. It's not me on the ground. What we've just done is catalyze some people and they've gone and done incredible work in changing the mindsets about the importance of female education and how child marriage is a gross violation of human rights. So that's one thing. Should I go on to another thing
Absolutely.
that we're very proud of? So we worked for many years in a conflict zone. And it's really interesting that when you work in these conflict zones, you find the most incredible leaders who really, with great courage, step up for building a better world for others. Again, some of the stuff I'm really proud of is the difference we've made to those community leaders who've been able to through their own actions, persuade people to choose nonviolence and to find other ways to do what they believe in. And again, in small pockets, we know that people have chosen nonviolence because of our work. For me, speaking from the heart, I've seen so many people who've lost family members through conflict and just the incredible tragic pain. And to know that if you can play a part in avoiding that pain has given me a great sense of joy and purpose.
It's impressive, actually, and sad at the same time to hear that we still have some of these societal problems that need to be addressed and tackled. Congratulations to you and to your entire team for all the wonderful work that you're doing. So since you mentioned that your work is a big source of joy for you, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Is indeed your work the primary source of your joy, or are there other facets that bring you immense joy in your life?
I feel that I've discovered what makes me come alive, or one of the many things that makes me feel like I come alive. And what that is about bringing people together, having a belief in them and understanding them and believing that we can build a better world together. And so that power of changing the way that we think about societal problems and see the agency and the power that we all have to building a better world. And when I'm doing that work or persuading a government leader or persuading a business leader that we should be doing this, I feel incredibly alive, because when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, what sits behind it is fairness and truth and love and non-violence and taking responsibility. And when you can play a part of that, I get incredible joy. Maybe I've become a bit too obsessive about it. There are many other things that give me a great joy. I love to play sport. Wherever I go, I'll often pack sports gear into my suitcase and see if I can spontaneously bring people together for a game of soccer, football, or a game of rugby, or whatever games I can create. And again, some of the greatest moments I've had are going to, really distant communities and bringing people together through sport. So that's something that's really important to me, that gives me great joy. And maybe the final thing is, ever since I've been a young kid, I've loved to climb mountains. I discovered my joy of mountains in the Scottish mountains, and then have climbed all over the world. I've climbed in the Andes in South America. I've climbed in the Sierra Nevadas in California, the European Alps, the Southern Alps in New Zealand, the Scottish Highlands, and a number of different ranges. And again, the joy of climbing and learning how to trust people on ropes and the technical side. I'm not very good at it, but I'm very safe. And that gives me a great sense of pushing the boundaries. Yeah.
And when you mentioned before the joy that comes from your work and tackling the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we have that deadline that the United Nations has brought forward as tackling all the 17 SDG goals by 2030. I wanted to get your view on the feasibility of achieving some of those targets, like zero hunger, no conflict, and dealing with all the sustainability issues that we have on this planet and so on. We're a couple of years away, and I wanted to get your view, particularly as a result of the work that you do and other individuals are doing and other organizations are doing to actually tackle those problems. Where will we be, in your view, in 2030?
First of all, I think it's up to us. I'll give my point of view. If we look to the model of the governments are going to solve this for us, the transnational agencies, UN, etc., and the COP process will solve this for us, I don't have much faith, because I feel everything is so interconnected that no one can solve these problems. So if you think about, we have two pressing things to do on the carbon side. We have to reduce our carbon emissions very quickly, but also we need to remove and sequester carbon out of our atmosphere also very quickly. And these are deeply systemic things. And this is the work of what the Bridge Institute does, is how do you bring government and business and civil society together in a carefully coordinated process? And I think that if we are willing to do that, and I think we are willing, then I have a lot of confidence that humanity is incredibly creative and we can do these things. I believe we have the technologies and the solutions to be a completely net zero world. When I look at some of the solutions we have available for taking carbon out of the atmosphere, for regenerating biodiversity, there is so much that we've got available to do this. But if we don't come together as a whole system, I think it's very difficult because the government haven't got the levers on their own to make it happen. So my answer is in two parts. It's up to us. If we come together, I have lots of faith we're going to do this. If we use a model where we're depending on government to do it alone, I think it's a setup for the government and it's an impossible task for the government.
And I agree with you. It's this collective ambition and the
Yes.
collective contributions that we all make that have the power to really tackle some of the world's biggest challenges. And as I'm looking into the future now and talking about joy, what do you believe we would need to do collectively to bring more joy to this world beyond, as I said, the sustainability problems, the peacemaking, and so on? Any thoughts on that?
Well, maybe I could answer it in three levels, in terms of what can we do individually in ourselves, and what can we do within our relationships, and then maybe what can we do in the world in terms of bringing more joy. I mean, I think that the first is just learning how to, in yourself, discover, your happiness and your joy. For me, I look at three things which are not original, but do you have a sense of meaning and purpose in your own life? Do you have the connection with other human beings or other living things? And if you're able to, are you able to exercise your body in a way? I know there's many other things, but just in yourself, if you can do those three things and kind of go, what can I do about enhancing my sense of purpose or enhancing my sense of connection with other people and making sure that I exercise well? And also, obviously, things like eating well and stuff, that all drives our happiness. And I think that would be maybe on an individual. On the collective, I think one of the things that drives our happiness most is the happiness of people around us. And so if you think about it, if you think about times when you might have been really happy, you might have noticed that everyone around you was also really happy. And then times when maybe been difficult, you may notice that people around you have been really, might have been really unhappy. I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but the happiness and confidence of the people around you is a massive driver of your own happiness. And there's a personal responsibility about how you choose to turn up with your families and your friends and and your colleagues. Do you choose to turn up and be the best version of yourself? And if you do, then you have this enormous ripple effect on other people. And then it comes right back at you. I think on the kind of what we can do in terms of build a better world, it does come back to the UN Sustainable Development Goals for me. So there's still a lot of violence in society, in fragile society. There's still a lot of conflict, and we need to look at that. We need to look at models that give people more hope. And I worry that too much of the world today is a kind of a win-lose model. Some people get the best education, some lose and don't get that. Some people get the best jobs, and I wonder if we could start challenging that construct of the world that we want to create around us. My concern is, and this is a very big generalization, but life has got better for human beings on the whole over the centuries. And this model that we've had has enabled so much of that. And my worry now is the model has served its purpose and we need a new model, because my worry is that we will hand life on to future generations where people will feel less joy and less happiness because it's not working in their favor like it has in previous generations. So those would be kind of three answers I would have for yourself, your relationships, and the world that we build around us to creating more joy.
And you mentioned purpose as being one important element, and some individuals seem to struggle to find their purpose. How did you find
Yes.
your purpose? And what insights could you share about that journey that could potentially inspire someone that may be struggling in finding their own purpose?
I mean, I think the first thing is a lot of people don't discover their purpose till later on in years in life, and that's absolutely fine. I think I really discovered it when I was around my mid 40s, and that's fine. And when I look at when I was 20 and I was thought, what was I about? It's really far. I was not expecting where I went. So I think, first of all, it's fine to take time. I've studied a lot of purpose-led leaders, and I've worked with a lot of people who are tremendously purpose-led, people who have changed the lives of millions of people. And what's really interesting about them is they were all there's two expressions of the same, it means the same thing. They were either in the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the right time. They had some experience that really fundamentally changed them and their worldview. And we can't, sometimes people call it heat experiences, but a moment that really challenges you. A few examples of it is, again, working in a conflict zone. First time I went there and really understanding the lives of people, it just really shook me. It saddened me tremendously. It really moved me. And it made me very committed to do something, to say if there's anything I can do to make a difference with my limited skills, I was really committed to it. I also, spent some time with a police force, seeing human trafficking in action, rescuing children. And again, this was another heat moment for me where it really crushed me, and it made me really committed to wanting, again, to do whatever I can to play a small part. So, and I've got a few of these different experiences, but the people who I've worked with who are much more purpose led than me and tremendous in their impact, they've had some really big heat moments when you kind of go, okay, we can really see how this can transform you. So what my advice is if you're to sort of say that your purpose is a combination of what you're passionate about, it's a combination of what you're good at, the strengths you bring, and the impacts and the needs of the world you're drawn to, is just keep looking for it and create conditions where the dots might start connecting, and just take a bit of courageous action. And you don't have to travel far to do this. And you don't have to go work for a charity. You don't have to go give up your job and go to some distant part of the world. There is opportunity for making an enormous difference wherever you live in the world, right on your doorstep. So that would be my kind of advice, is create these heat moments and have faith that the dots will start connecting for you. And think about those questions about, what are you really drawn to? What are you really good at, and or could be good at? And what are you passionate about? And just go out, meet different people, have different experiences. And then as you do that, things will start making more and more sense, and you'll realize what you are about and what maybe you're not about. The good news is there is so many things in the world that need your attention, that need help. And so you have an unlimited supply of places to discover your purpose.
I fully agree with what you said. And I want to connect back to one point that you mentioned, the importance of lifestyle, whether it's exercising, healthy eating, sleep, and so on. And my view on purpose is integrating that selfish, altruistic dimension, because
Yes.
there's so many wonderful things we can do in this world, so many problems that we may be passionate to tackle and contribute to. But unless we are
Yes.
actually taking care of ourselves, we will not have the vitality or the energy to actually make a positive contribution. Can you share more on that component of lifestyle based on your experience? And I'd love to know if you actually agree with this point or not.
First of all, I absolutely agree with this point. If you're going to go change the world in whatever form, small or big, you need to be the best version of yourself. I'll give some opinions. People may disagree with them. I'll take each part. So first of all, sleep. If you're tired, you just can't do great stuff. You're going to be more grumpy, less creative. You're going to have less ability to take courageous decisions. So you've just got to protect your sleep. And, I'm not a sleep expert, but as I understand it, most of us need either somewhere between 7 to 9 hours sleep. And you kind of know where you are on that. And so first thing is, you've just got to protect your sleep, because a tired, grumpy person can't change the world and be purpose led. And, obviously all the relationships with your food and exercise. Again, quoting studies, the World Health Organization says that if you're able to exercise as an adult, you should exercise at least 30 minutes a day. It profoundly changes your creativity and your sense of yourself and your confidence, etc. So I really, really do believe, to be a great difference in the world and be of service to other people, then you've just got to look after your health primarily every single day and never compromise. And, for me, it's really unlikely you're going to make a difference to the world if you're not looking after your own health. So I don't see it as a selfish thing. I see it as a selfless thing, to make sure that you're here for good and you're the best version of yourself. So I 100% agree. I think just one other thing that's really interesting is, I also think it's really important for society that you find what you love and do, because it radiates. If you've got a great sense of purpose and love for life, it makes a massive difference for others. So if you're a parent and you love what you do, and your children come home and see you loving what you do, they are going to then have great confidence and love for life themselves. I've read a number of studies that have proven there's that direct correlation. So to be of service to others, you've got to look after yourself and you've got to find what you love, because when you find what you love, you help others find what they love. So I don't think of it as selfish at all. I think it much more as selfless.
And it creates that ripple effect that you mentioned earlier, which is
Yes, yes,
quite incredible.
yes.
And Mac, you have lived in so many different countries through your lifetime. And I'm
Yes.
curious to know what impact those experiences have had on you, particularly when it comes to finding joy.
When we look at, culture across the world, and if you go to different airports and you'll see the same coffee shops and same brands and stuff, you could start concluding that the world is flat or getting flatter. But the thing is that there is just enormous difference in the world and diversity. One of the things that we also say is, even within a country, probably the diversity within a country is greater than the difference between countries. And, so you think about the diversity of the US and just how wide that is. That's probably greater than the difference between America as average and, say, Canada as an average. And you don't need to travel for it, because the world has got so much diversity on its doorstep now. Is being able to embrace and understand all these different cultures is just wonderful. And you need to be able to read and understand it. You need to be able to read that people say things in different ways, that people in South Asia say things different to the way people in certain countries will say something, or people in China will have different time spans to, say, people in other parts of the world. And I think that when you are able to read it and understand what the differences are, and have a deep curiosity that sits at the heart of it, for me, it gives me incredible joy. I feel just so inspired that in an average week, even not having to move, I will spend time with Japanese people and with Chinese people and with American people and with French people. And I feel I can read them and I can understand the difference, and I can understand the similarities. And I think it's that curiosity and that deep connection that gives me great hope, actually, for the world, as well as joy.
And that curiosity, if it can live within us as it lives in you, and we can even transpose that within organizations, I think there's also an opportunity to create more human-centric cultures. Yes. And businesses. When we're seeing some of the engagement rates in corporations and the problems actually that are being addressed linked to diversity, inclusion, and so on, it's sad. Yes. Somehow to see that we lack this curiosity about other human beings, even that are from our own countries. So when we can truly embrace that curiosity for all human beings and uniting as one, as you had mentioned earlier, there's this tremendous power that brings us together to collectively tackle some of the most immediate local problems or international problems that we may be facing.
Absolutely. In our work, we teach very simple tools to help the leaders come together and solve complex problems together. And I'm going to introduce one of the such tools and share it, and it speaks to the points you make. So the tool we call it See, Hear, Speak. And it's a pathway for taking people with you. And so what it means is that when you are engaging with a colleague, a friend, or anyone, if you follow the pathway of I see you, I hear you, and then I speak in that order, then they will want to follow you. So the I see you is, I see you for the amazing human being that you are. I believe in you. I understand what it's like to be in your shoes, and I notice you, and I have a great faith in you, and I trust you. Those are all the things that a leader can do with a peer or a colleague or a team member, to say, I see you. And then I hear you is asking really great questions from great curiosity, so that you fully understand the person. And then when you've done, I see you well, I hear you well, then you earn the right to speak, and you can share your point of view, your vision, etc. And it's just a very simple model of taking people with you. I see you, I hear you, I speak. So see, hear, speak. But the reason it's so powerful is it allows other people's needs to be seen and to be heard and to recognized, to go first. And then, and I don't know about your personal experiences, but when someone comes up to you and really makes you feel seen and heard and recognized and believed in, you'll follow them, probably to a certain extent, no matter what they say, because you just feel so seen, heard, and recognized. And if we can do that with every relationship we have, we will make a tremendous difference in the world.
I fully agree. And what you just shared brings to mind the concept of the emotions that human beings feel and that are activated in specific interactions. And if we're really looking at the extreme spectrums, as leaders, we can activate the survival emotions of fear and anxiety and so on. Or on the opposite spectrum, we have the opportunity to activate the attachment emotions, which are connected to love, to joy, to excitement, to that human connection. And if more leaders will actually reflect on the impact that their actions have through every single interaction, I think we have an opportunity to create a better world. And not only within organizations, but also within our personal lives, simply by understanding that all humans are emotional human beings and our brains are listening all the time and watching for cues that either raise the trust or basically bring more fear to those connections and interactions.
Absolutely. And my advice to people, whenever you're dealing with someone and there's a lot of emotion, if someone is emotionally flooded, again, it's a deep dive on the See, Hear, Speak, but just, the tool I say is, I call it listen with playback. So if someone's emotionally flooded, they will be sharing a lot of emotion. Just let them feel really, really heard and understood and empathized. And by doing that, you will create the message, I care about you, and you will create that connection. And that's what people really need in those moments, is just to be really, really heard and really understood. Yeah.
So, Mac, as you shared earlier, your big passion for mountaineering. I'm curious to learn more about that and your experiences, particularly as it relates to joy and experiencing awe. Were there moments of awe when you were climbing some of those mountains and you reached the peak and you're like, wow, how amazing is this? Can you share any of those experiences with us?
Of course, and I must emphasize there are many, many good climbers. Just something that I've done at an amateur, very amateur level over my years. I think the thing about climbing is, and again, these are very, very easy mountains to climb, but the ones that require, if you fell, there would be significant risk. So the climbs that have given me the greatest joy are ones where you need to have a rope on, you need to be protecting each other. And for me, great teamwork is really illustrated in when you're climbing a mountain. You're communicating the whole time, you're checking each other, you're looking after each other's safety. You've got to be relaxed and caring of each other. And when you do all of that and you protect each other and you get to the top, it's really life-changing. I've seen so many people in tears when they've made the top and they've pushed themselves and seen that they've and myself, I've done something I didn't think was possible. And for me, it's just a great experience of coming together and pushing the boundaries, really. And I think it's a really beautiful sport when done safely. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And indeed, this proves that we can have so much joy and pleasure in activities that really are beautiful in many ways without necessarily being an expert or, practicing for 8 hours a day. And life actually is also about finding that combination of activities that bring us that opportunity to connect with others in new, meaningful ways, to seek curiosity, new experiences, and those moments of awe, which all collectively contribute to elevating our joy. And once we feel that joy, it just opens the door to so many new inspirations and possibilities, either personally or professionally. So thank you so much for sharing.
And if I may share another example of this about giving new experiences. So something I feel really passionate about is creating sport for everyone and inviting people of whatever level they are, whether they've played no sport at all to whether they've played all their lives, and bringing people together to play sport in mixed ages, men and women, boys and girls. And that's something that I've held and done for many, many years. And again, you create new experiences for people. So I feel that a more joyful world would have inclusive sport in every part of society. You can join in and whatever the game that you would love to play, whether it's netball or soccer or softball or whatever it is, depending which hemisphere you're from, there's a place where you can go and you're welcome. And I just think that that would lead to a much happier world. And that's something wherever I go, I try to create those conditions for that.
And what you just shared, actually, the team chemistry that emerges when you're bringing those people together, if we can transpose those same ingredients in a work environment, creating that harmony, that collective ambition or purpose, that recognition for everyone's contributions and roles in making it more fun and allowing the team to basically succeed in whatever sports they're playing, it can actually bring so much more joy within organizations as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Believe in people, let people have a go, and it's okay. If you didn't do great, that's fine. But it's not about that. It's about just turning up and having a go, and apply that to every part of life, and you'll be a great force for good for sure.
Great. And on those beautiful words, Mac, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been an immense pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful things that you're doing. And I wish you continued success in having a hugely positive impact on this world. So thank you.
It's my privilege to be with you today. Thank you so much again.